In this video, we will start to discover forms in Django and will continue to implement the CRUD functionality. CRUD is acronym for Create, Read, Update and Delete. Functionality for reading data of our block is already implemented, so creating, updating and deleting are left. I want to create posts and tags via HTML forms. I want to input needed data in a form, click a button on a web page, and the instances of a model should be created and saved to the database. When we deal with HTML forms, we have a lot of work. First of all, we need an HTML form itself. Then we need to check a user's data, and if the data are wrong, we have to show the user an error message about it. Then we need to clean data and prepare them for creating an instance of a model. And at last we have to create an instance of the model and save it. To do this work, Django has powerful tools. I want to start with creating tags. First of all, I need to create a new Python module, forms.py. And here I have to import ModelForms. And now I'm creating here a new class. Let's say it will be the tag form class that will be inherit its properties from the form class from the forms module. So the class tag form forms form. Its body should mirror repeat the content of the tag class. So the tag form class will have two properties, title and slug. The title, it's an instance of the char field. Its max length property will be equal to 150. The slug field will be the same. The form class will generate the HTML code for each property, for title and slug. Also, the form class validates and cleans a user's data. The body of the tag form class should repeat the content of the tag class, because the HTML form is like a portal to the database. That's why I have to repeat all properties of the tag class in the tag form class that should not be filled automatically. And now, on the example of the tag form class, we will see how the form class validates and cleans a user's data. There is an important detail. When we create an instance of a model, tag or post model via forms, we should avoid to pass a user's data directly into the constructors of these models or these classes, because the user's data can be malicious for our project. The class constructors should get data from the special dictionary, the cleaned data dictionary. That's an attribute of the form class. Let's look at it in the terminal. So again, I am opening the shell, and here I have to import the tag form class. From blog forms, import tag form. And I'm creating an instance of the tag form class. tf tag form equals to tag form. But I don't pass anything to its constructor. So let's look at tf variable. We can see its fields, title and slug, and we can see that its bound property equals to false, set to false. Bound means bound data, and bound data it's the data that a user inputted into the form. In this case, I didn't pass anything to its constructor, and that is why the bound property is false. Now let's look at tag form attributes. First of all, I need here is bound property and is valid method. And also we can notice that there is no the clean data dictionary. The isValid method always returns false if the form was not filled with data. In this case, there is no bound data and is bound equals to false also. tf is bound, also false. And now I want to create a new dictionary with keys named like the properties of the form. That's the title key, and the title key will have an empty string as the value, and the slug key with empty string as the value also. And I want to create again an instance of the tag form class, but at this time I am passing into the tag form constructor my D dictionary, and in this case the isBound property is set to true because the form was filled with empty strings, but its isValid method returns false again. False. And in this moment we can look at the errors dictionary to know what's wrong. tf errors. And here we got messages here and here that both fields, the title and the slug fields, are required. Then, if the isBound property equals to true and we call the isValid method, we should get the clean data dictionary. When I called isValid method, the cleaned data dictionary was created, but now it's empty. The cleaned data dictionary will be empty until the isValid method will return true. So the next step. Now I'm creating a new dictionary with valid data this time. D equals to title will be Flask and slug will be also Flask. And again, I'm creating a new instance of the tag form, and this time I'm passing into its constructor my D dictionary with valid data. Let's look at his isBound property. We got true. Now let's call its isValid method. We got true again. We can look at errors dictionary. Now it is empty. And let's look at clean data dictionary. And we can see that the clean data dictionary got my data. And the data of the cleaned data dictionary we should use to create instances of our models. In general, the validation and the cleaning process of the data consists of the following steps. Django calls the isValid method that consistently calls clean methods of each field of the form and the clean method of the form. The clean method of the form checks and cleans the data user inputted. If all users' data are OK, the cleaned and validated data are stored in the clean data dictionary. If something wrong with the user's data, Django will raise the validation error exception. The next step, to create an instance of models, we have to redefine the save method. So, first of all, I have to import the tag class from the models py module. And now I want to define the save method. New tag equals to tag objects create. And now I have to pass into the create method required title and slug of a tag. So the title will be, I have to use the clean data dictionary, and I'm calling its get method, and here I want to get the value of its title key. And the slug will be the same. And the save method will return the new tag variable. Let's test it in the Django shell. Let's look at all tags. I have only one tag, Django. Okay, let's create a new dictionary with some valid data. The title will be Flask, and the slug key will be Flask also. And now I want to create an instance of the tag form, and I am passing my dictionary into its constructor. Now I want to see the value of its bound property. It's true, and the result of the isValid method. It's also true. Okay, and now let's save. And my save method returned a new tag, the Flask. So let's look at tags. We can see that tags variable now refers to the list, to the query set with two objects, and we have our Flask here. That's how it works. And now let's create a URL pattern for the future view that will render to a user this form. So I'm opening the URLs.py file, and I have two issues here. The first one, a tag should not be created, because if the URL will be something like blog tag create, Django will try to find the tag with the create slug. It's the slug, isn't it? And that's the slug that does not exist. And I have to avoid this situation. And this URL, blog tag create, should display to me a page with the form to create a tag. And due to this issue, the URL pattern for tag creating page should be placed above the URL pattern for the tag detail view. Right here. So I'm calling the path function. Here will be tag create. Then I want to use, let's say, tag create view. The name of this URL pattern will be tag create URL. And the second issue, I have to save slug of a tag in a lowercase. Because of that. So let's create a list with one. So I've got a list, and what will I get if I sort the list? We can think that we'll get a list sorted in the alphabetical order. Is it right? But we should remember that sorting will be in alphabetical order and case sensitive. 1, 1, 2, 2, 1, 2. And that is why our slugs should be lowercased. And to solve these problems, both problems, I have to define a custom clean method for the slug field of the tag form class. This custom clean method will lowercase the slug and check whether the slug is create or not. If a user will try to create a tag with the create slug, I should raise the validation error exception. Every field of a form class has its own clean method. The names of clean methods start with the clean word and underscore, and then the name of a field. I want to have the clean method for the Slug field, so I have to use the name Slug. So the new Slug variable will be, I have to get the Slug value from the cleaned data dictionary. So self cleaned data get Slug, and now I have to lowercase it. And then I need to import the validation error class. And I want to check if the new Slug variable equals to create, then I am raising the validation error with some message, something like Slug may not be create, otherwise just return new Slug. And that's it. We have the clean method for the Slug field. We have a URL pattern. Now I have to create a view. I'm opening the views.py file and I'm creating a new class, tag create, tag create. And now I have two tasks here. The first one, I have to display the form to a user. That I have to respond for his GET request, and then I have to accept from the user some data that I have to respond for his POST request. So I need here the GET method like I did before and the POST method. Let's start with the GET method. Self request. I'm creating a new form. Let's import it. From forms import tag form. It's an empty form, so I just render it in a template. HTML template will be tag create HTML and the context dictionary form. Now let's create the tag create HTML. It will extend base block HTML, the title block create tag, and the content block. Here I want to use a form. There is a basic form that Emmet plugin suggests, and there are two needed attributes. The method attribute, it's the post method. That means that when a user clicks the submit button, he will make the post request. And the second needed attribute is the action attribute. Action is a link to a function that will handle a user's request, that will handle the user's data. And in our case, it will be a call of the URL function. And here I am passing the URL pattern name, tag create URL. Tag create URL. The next step, I have to place here the cross-site request forgery protection. CS cross-site request forgery token block. It is the required field, the required block, otherwise we'll get an exception. And then I want to use a button that type submit. and its text will be submit. Let's test it. Blog tag create, and we can see my form with this button. Let's create h1 tag. Okay, it works, but I need two fields for the title and the slug, and I can add them by using the form variable I passed to this tag create HTML template. Form, it has the title attribute and the slug attribute. F5, and we can see two input fields. It works, we can see the form. It means that the Django handled my GET request. But if I try to post something, nothing happens because I have no handler for the post request. I can handle only GET requests. And my form is a default form, but not Bootstrap form. So I want to have a form with the Bootstrap styles. I need the Bootstrap documentation and the forms section. I think I will use this one. And for each field of my form, I have to use these CSS classes. Just for reference, I'm copying it here. We can iterate over forms fields via standard for loop. So I want to use the for block for field in form, then I need a div with a form group class. And here I want the label for my field. And that's all. Let's test it. Okay. Nothing changed except the labels of the fields. And also I want to have Bootstrap's alerts if a user will input wrong data. So the alerts section, I want to have the danger alert, these classes. And here in the form, I want to check if the field has errors or not. If the field has any error, I need to use the div block with field errors as the text, and that's it. Okay, and now I have to fix an issue with Bootstrap styles. Django automatically generates an HTML code for fields of forms they called widgets, and thus I need somehow to add to the fields of a form needed CSS classes. So I have to do it not in the HTML file but in the tag form class. Any forms widget has the attrs dictionary, with all attributes of the widget. So I just need to update this dictionary with my data. So it will be the title field, widget attribute, attrs dictionary, and I'm calling the update method where I'm passing a new dictionary with the class key, and the class will be for input field form control. And the same for the slug. And also I want to add some classes to the button. btn, btn primary. Let's check it. I got Bootstrap styles for my form. And now I need to add the post method to my tag create class. Use py, tag create. I'm defining a new method post, self request. And here the logic is the same like in my experiments in the Django shell. The first step is to create an instance of the tag form class with bounded data. And then I need to validate input data. That's I have to call the isValid method of the form, and if it's valid, then I'll have to create the tag class object. Otherwise I have to raise an exception. So I'm creating a new variable bound form. Bound form means that a user has inputted something in the form, and it will be the tag form instance. But what I have to pass into the tag form class constructor? In the shell I passed there the dictionary with the tag data. But what I have to do now? And now is the moment when the request object will help. Because the request object contains all data user has inputted into the form and submitted to our server, to our app. So let's look at the request object. An empty string, request. Okay, I have to call the post method, so submit, great. And here we can see the attributes of the request data. There is the post object. Let's look at it. Print request post. F5 resubmission, okay. And we can see that the post dictionary of the request object contains all needed data for the tag form constructor. I am deleting this, and into the tag form I am passing the request post dictionary. I got the bounded form. And now I have to check whether the data are valid. And if they are valid, I want to create a new tag object by calling its save method. If bound form, I'm calling isValid method. It's true or false. So if true, new tag will be bound form save. I'll got the new tag object because of this. And after I got the new tag object, I want to redirect a user to a page with this object, with this new tag. So Returning value will be the redirect. Redirect is a function. So and I am passing into the redirect function my new tag object. The redirect function under the hood uses the getAbsoluteURL, so it just redirects to this page by its getAbsoluteURL function method. Okay, and what I have to do if the bound form will be not valid? I just repeat this action, this behavior. If the bound form will be not valid, I just render a user this tag create HTML with a bounded form, filled with data. Let's test it again. Tag create. So okay, let's say create. Name form is not defined, line 44. Bounded form. I have to use bounded form. 5. And we can see Bootstrap alert. Slug may not be created. Okay. And then let's create again the Django tag. And I got an exception, integrity error. Unique constraint failed, block tag slug. Okay. And I got this exception because in the tag model there is the constraint that tags should have unique slugs. And to handle this exception I have to correct the clean method of my tag form. I just check if the tag objects filter slug equals to new slug, and I'm calling the count method that returns a quantity of tags. So if it's true and there is a tag with this slug, I have to raise an exception. Validation error. Slug should be unique. Something like this. And that's all. Let's test it again. Slug should be unique. We have Django already. But we have another issue here. This code is not so dry as I want. If I want to add some fields in the tag model, I'll have to add these same fields in the tag form class. It's not convenient because it's additional movement. Django helps to avoid this redundancy with using of the ModelForm class. So I want to edit the tag form class to make it more universal. And this time I want to use ModelForm. The idea of ModelForm is to bind the model with a form class for this model. So this binding is performed via subclass meter, where I have to define the model, the tag, and I need to specify all fields that I want to use in the form. It will be title and the slug. Then I want to use these classes for these fields. So in the meta class again, I have to define a dictionary with the title key that equals to the forms text input widget that has the author's dictionary with the same content. Class form control and the slug text input widget and its author's dictionary. And we can delete this. Almost the same. And at last I have to delete the save method because the ModelForm class has its own more universal save method that will be used when we will update the tag. These save methods can only create but not update tags. So I just commented. Let's test it again. Okay. Widgets as here should be. Okay. Nothing changed. Okay. Great. Okay. Nothing changed. Everything works, and that's all for now. If you like the video, please thumb up and subscribe to the channel.